welcome to the second video in our series about the bird LDM. Today we'll give an overview of the LDM and we'll discuss groups, hierarchies and forward engineering. So let's jump into it. Let's use SQL Developer, which is a tool of choice for viewing and also designing the bird logical data model. And here we have the logical data model and here's the overview. We can zoom in and zoom out. And the first thing we see is there's many entities with many relationships, and we split into about 10 colours. These colours are concepts you're probably familiar with. There's things like instruments, securities and derivatives, parties, risk data. It's a very broad split of the entities in the logical data model into about 10 classifications. Now within each of these groups we have multiple entities. There's a box per entity here, and the entities are split into hierarchies. We have multiple hierarchies in each entity group. So let's look at this tree view of our logical data model. So you have a lot of entities. And let's look at instrument, because that's the root of a hierarchy. So what we can do is we can actually go to some of the pre-made diagrams which show this in a subset. So let's look at instrument type by product. And this gives us an overview of what we mean by a hierarchy. We have an instrument at the top and it has some subtypes: loan, equity instrument that's not a security, SFTs, off balance, and OTC derivatives. And we can see in the root we have the shared fields, but we have for OTC derivatives only the extra fields needed for OTC. And that's something that allows us to make very concise data, because we only use these fields when we're dealing with OTC. We don't have to consider them when we're dealing with something like loans. Now our hierarchies can be multi-level, so actually loan has a set of subtypes itself, so it's under this instrument hierarchy. Let's have a look at that if we can. I actually have it open here. So loan has more subtypes. You can see trade receivables, financial leases, credit card debt, other loans. Actually, this is a loan in advance, and then so we have subtypes advance, transit items, suspense items. So here's a hierarchy. So why don't we just have one? We don't just have one hierarchy per colour, per entity group. We can have more than one. So under this green colour, if you like, the instruments group, we also have something called instrument role. Let's have a look at that. See its fields here. And let's have a look at, say, what's involved there in that hierarchy. So the instrument role has subtypes of financial asset instrument, financial liability instrument, off balance sheet item received, collateral received instrument, and collateral given instrument. And again, only on the, so if we have the subtype off where the instrument rolls off balance sheet given instrument, we only have the columns here that are needed for off balance sheet item, again allowing us to make very concise data representations of what we want to represent. And we note here that the instrument, the root of the instrument hierarchy, has a relationship with the instrument role it has. There is one or more instrument roles for each instrument. Now there's a lot of entities in the LDM, and it includes inheritance, so it's not the best implementation model, many would say. So we consider how can we put this into a smaller set of tables that is purely relational, so we can describe data in a relational database such as Oracle or SQL Server, something that's more familiar for implementation. And the way we do that is we forward engineer the logical data model. We follow principles in this document here, this article, Preserving Conceptual Model Semantics in the Forward Engineering of Relational Schemas. The idea being that we create a relational model with less tables, which is very much equivalent, so that anything that could be described in the logical data model, such as a term loan with multiple debtors, should be able to be described in the forward engineered input layer. And we use particularly here an approach from this article called one table per hierarchy. So if we go back to our data model, then we see we actually have about 100 hierarchies split across these 10 or so groups. And if we look at the input layer, this is a forward engineered model, we can see it here. In the relational models in SQL Developer, let's look at the input layer with full names. We'll see here we have this much longer table called instrument with many columns, and also instrument role related to our hierarchies. So here we see instrument role. We actually see all of these items have been squashed into one larger table. At the same time as we do this, we create some validation rules which help us to validate the technical structure of these. But we see we're making less tables, but each table is a lot larger. We can also even see the link between items. So for example, if we go back to instrument role in our logical data model, and we had a look at, let me see, instrument role type maybe, and from impact analysis, we see that the attribute instrument role type on the instrument role entity in logical data model, we can see that it's in this instrument role table in the input layer. Full names type of instrument role. So we can see what attributes in the LDM relate to what attributes in the input layer. So I hope that gives an overview of entity groups and hierarchies, and in the next video we'll have a quick look at in more detail at roles, what they are, and also assignments, which are very useful patterns used in the logical data model to allow us to give very concise representations of data. So I hope you found it interesting. Thank you for watching.